Hey, Shalom, ye men of Israel, Bayat Shah Dawadah, House of David. We want to start off by giving all thanks, all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wahara Kadash. Yahweh being a true Hebrew name of the Heavenly Father. Not Yahweh, not Jehovah, but Yahweh, which is Hebrew, for he is to be, to exist. His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. That name is also in the Hebrew. It is Yahweh Shah, which is Hebrew, for he saves, he delivers, he is our salvation. This lesson is being done in the Ruach HaKodesh, which means the Holy Spirit. All right? Double honors to the elder apostle, great millstone, who rule well, teach well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect that are pushing this truth and sincerity. The great multitude that will be calling upon the name of Yahweh Shemel Shai in prophecy and in truth, love and faith to Yahweh Shemel Shai. This is your brother Banar Bond of the Great Mill Camp, Dallas, coming to you again with another lesson, praying that this lesson will be edifying to the flock. And this won't be a very long lesson. But I found this article from the week, and it's titled, More Adults Are Dying Before the Age of 65. So as we read these things, to really put it in better perspective, you have to consider, the scriptures. You have to consider the Bible. Because there was a time where men were living to be over 900 years old. But the age has been declining since the flood of Noah. So let's get that precept before we start reading the article real quick. Okay. Let me get this in the blue letter. I'm going to get that Genesis 5:1, just to reflect on the scriptures, because you have to have some foundation, okay, to gauge or measure things that you read, especially in these times. So Genesis 5:1, it reads, it says, this is the book of the generation of Adam, in the day that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, okay, created man, okay. In this, you can say, when you look up that word God, just to put into perspective, it says Elohim, okay. But when you read the Hebrew, it says Alahayim, Alahayim. And it says rulers, judges, divine ones, angels, gods. Okay, so this is going into the Alahayim, right? Allah meaning power. Okay, Yam means powers or judges or gods. So it's talking about Yahweh Shai and the elect. Okay, because it's not talking about Yahweh per se, but we know everything flows from Yahweh. Okay, so let's go back to that scripture again and read it. This is the book of the generation of Adam, in the day that the Alahayim created man, in the likeness of the Alahayim made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them and called their name Adam, Adawam, in the day when they were created. So it's letting you know that the Most High always has a purpose for his creation. So this is a cut to those the alphabet gangs, those that want to preach to you that a male and a male can exist. Well, what purpose does that serve? A female and a female can exist. What purpose does that serve? Does that bring forth life? Okay, you can even look into nature and see that the Most High created everything male, female. It goes on to say, and Adam lived 130 years and begat. And when you say begat, that means from the father, right? Because the father carries the seeds. So we know Yahweh, okay, spoke Yahweh Shai into existence. So that's how Yahweh Shai is known as the only begotten son of Yahweh, okay? His creation was by word. But we know begat means what? Through the father. Even throughout history, okay, everything goes back to the father. It'll tell you the house of this man, right? The house of Saul. It'll say the house of David, okay, which goes back to the lineage, starting with the man. Just want to break that down. It also goes into, and Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness, okay, after his image, and called his name Seth. And let's look up what that word Seth means. All right, because we know that the first, okay, the likeness of Adam was through what? Cain and Abel. Okay, he begat Cain and Abel. But we know that Cain, what? Slew Abel because of the jealousy of the offerings. Okay, we know that Abel was giving what? Worthy offerings. But Cain was giving what? Fruits, nuts, and from, that sacrifice that he was making to the Lord, he sacrificed his brother, okay, Abel, and the blood. All right, so Seth was given as what? Compensation. Okay, and it says the third son of Adam and Eve, all right, Seth. So as we go back, because we have to break these things down, because the Christians do not break it down. It says all right, Genesis 5 and 4. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. Even at 800 years, he was still having what? Sons and daughters. Okay? And when you consider that in these times, that's kind of unheard of. It seems impossible. It seems supernatural. But the question is, do you believe in the scriptures? These things actually took place. You see? It also says what? Genesis 5 and 5. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. It goes on to say, and Seth lived 105 years and begat Enos. And Seth lived after he begat Enos 807 years and begat sons and daughters. Which proves that what? Even at the old age of a person, because that's what we're reading here, okay, 807 years, we as men, and this is by design by Yahweh Shem Shah, we carry the seed. We can still plant the seed no matter how old we get, all right? Whereas the woman's womb in these times, and even in the time of old, because Sarah, okay, her womb has shut because of old age, okay, but Abraham was still able, you see, and also Rachel, her womb was closed at a certain time, but the Most High made all these things possible. Why? Because he is the Father of spirits. He is the Father of life, the living power, okay? And it says, in all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. So there was a time where man was living exceedingly long years, okay? Now, after the flood, okay, where only 8 righteous people were left, okay, Noah, okay, you have Shem, okay, Japheth, you have Ham, and their wives. They lived and survived the flood. After them came all other nations, and the lifespan of man started to decrease. So let's get back to that article now that we have some reflection on the scriptures. It says, more adults are dying before the age of 65. This is by the week. It says, many in the U.S. are not living long enough to receive medical health, especially marginalized communities. When they say marginalized communities, it's talking about you so-called blacks, Latino, Native Indians, the place that they have put you in. Even when you consider the Native Indians, they put them on what? Reservations. And where do they put you so-called blacks, Latinos? In ghettos, okay? And they use gerrymandering, redlining to keep you put in a certain demographic, okay? Within those demographics, the food is the worst food. You have churches, which is, leading you toward idols, liquor stores, okay, trap houses, weed houses, all these things to keep you from what? Progressing and keep you in a decline. So that's what we're reading here. The decline of age, decline of time, according to you so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Indians. That's why Great Millstone preaches what? A change that needs to come. Because this devil, the so-called white man, calling you so-called black people, so-called Latinos, he's keeping you in a place where he's just what? Slaughtering you slowly, daily. It says, many in the U.S. are not living long enough to receive medical health, especially marginalized communities. The disparity between those who pay into the benefits and those who live to use it is growing, and also highlighting the inequality central to the healthcare system. Now, whenever I read various articles, no matter what it is, the premise is it's always about you so-called blacks, so-called Native Indians, so-called Latinos, Hispanics. You're always in the news. Why? Because you are a subject of interest, not only to Esau, Edom, but also to Yahweh Bashim Shai. You see? And that's the revelation of these times, who we are. Having the names of Yahweh Shema Shai, understanding our lineage, understanding where we are, understanding how we got here, understanding who is ruling in these times, the so-called white man. He is supreme. Job 9:24 says the earth is given to the hand of the wicked. So when we read articles such as this saying what? More adults are dying before the age of 65. Who you think is doing that? Of course, Yahweh by Shema Shai. Okay, as it says in Matthew 13. Okay, Esau Edom is the sword of Yahweh by Shema Shai. He's doing all these things, man. That's why you are always in the news. That's why you are always the subject of the matter. It says pay to not play. It says premature mortality increased in adults aged 18 to 64 by 27.2% between 2012 and 2022, according to a study published in JAMA Health Forum. The increase was 10% higher in black adults compared to white adults. In addition, states such as West Virginia, New Mexico, Mississippi have the nation's highest premature mortality rates, while Massachusetts, Minnesota fare best, said the Washington Post. So when you read and see these states being mentioned, there's a pro and con. It's letting you know that the mortality rate increased by 10%, okay, in the black adult communities compared to the white adults. Is this by chance or is this by design? Well, you have to ask yourself, are we sovereign? You have to ask yourself, where are we? Are we not in captivity? The Lord said, you shall eat your food defiled in the place that he shall scatter you. Okay, are we not scattered? You so-called blacks, Latino, Native Indian, okay, the 12 tribes of Israel, we're everywhere. Due to Deuteronomy 28, okay, the blessings, which is listed first, which we're going to get in the end, right? Better is the end of a thing than the beginning. And then it talks about the curses, Deuteronomy 28:15 on down. What we're reading here is a clip of the curses, you see? In fact, let's go ahead and get that. We're going to get straight to the point, get the meat. So as we read Deuteronomy 28:1, all right, it says, it shall come to pass that thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy power will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. Now, as a token to the Lord's curses, Salakia, give me 1 minute. As a token to the Lord's curses, okay, that he put upon the children of Israel, are we above all nations? Are we below all nations? How do we know that? Well, if we scroll down to Deuteronomy 28:15, again, the blessing is listed here, which we're going to get in the end. But Deuteronomy 28:15 says, but it shall come to pass if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments, his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Let's read the first one, okay? Because this is where we're at. And these are tokens to know who the children of Yahweh Shema Shai is, okay? Because it even says in Deuteronomy 28 and I want to say 45, we'll get to it, that you'll be called bywords and proverbs. They're calling you black. They're calling you not even human. They called you more related to monkeys, okay? They call you two nations, African American. You're everything but what the Lord has said you would be, okay? And that's a sign of falling from grace, all right? Not being above our nation, but now you're below the nations. You're even below, at this time, the basis of men, which is Esau, Edom. And I believe that's Deuteronomy 4:17. So we'll read some of these curses. It says, cursed shall thou be in the city. Cursed shall thou be in the field. Okay? So whether you be at work, whether you be, working in the city, whether you're working in the fields, the place that you make your money from, you will not prosper. Okay? You will not be blessed. Okay? Cursed shall thou be thy basket and thy store. Let's see what thy store means. I believe that's going into Okay, the place that you keep your goods. Kneading throw or bowl. Okay, let's see what the root. It said to remain, to be left over, be left behind. Okay, even to say be left behind, you being last, not being first. Okay, because being above all nations is being first according to the eyes of Yahweh Shemel Shai, but also according to the nations. The nations will look at you, other nations, right, the 18 nations, okay, will look at you and say, these are, blessed people of the Lord. But do we look like we're being blessed at this time? Right? Again, all tokens of what we're getting into this article, the decline in your age. All right? It says, cursed shall the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep. So the Lord basically touched everything, okay, that would keep you down, to let you know that he has done all these things, to let you know that you sinned against him. You see? And all these are tokens of who the children of Yahweh Shemel Shai is. You see? So let me see what else can we get from this. Cursed, this is Deuteronomy 28:19. Cursed shall thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shall thou be when thou goest out. That means that the Lord will give you no rest. Typically when you are in captivity, okay, or let's say you've been arrested and you've been incarcerated, okay, you're not at rest. You're in a place that is not of your will, okay? You committed a crime, so now you've been in prison. You don't have liberty. You don't have rest. You don't have blessings. You see? Let's get back to that article, get a little bit more. Again, not going to make this too long, but just to let you know that the Lord is doing all these things, man. It says the new study builds on previous findings regarding life expectancy in the U.S. between 2009 and 2021. And when you think about that, you think about what the Lord said as far as Matthew, all right, is that 24:6? Talks about pestilence. All right. Because that's what's taking Jake out. A lot of these diseases, okay, whether it be, they'll let you know that the so-called black community is known for what? Diabetes, heart disease, right? Cancer, okay? And it's what you're actually putting into your body that's decreasing your life expectancy. That's decreasing your mortality, all right? So Matthew 24:6 says, we'll just get to it, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and we're seeing all these things, man. Now, if you don't believe in prophecy, it doesn't matter. But you cannot stop prophecy, okay? And if you don't believe in prophecy, it was destined. It was already written that you wouldn't believe it, all right? As it says in 2nd Ezra, all right, 15, right? The incredulity, those that do not believe in the prophecy, right? And it goes on to say that those that do not believe in prophecy, paraphrasing, will die in their unfaithfulness. You'll still die. All right? For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. I want to focus on that pestilence. What is pestilence? All right. G36:1. Okay. A pestilence, fellow, pest, plague. A plague. Let's see what else we can get from this. All right, let's see. Okay, so that plague goes into diseases. And so it's diseases that's, a lot of times that determines the mortality of the human beings. So the fact that we're not sovereign here, we don't grow our own food, Your enemy, the so-called white man, through various companies, Nestle or Zorka, Dasani, they've taken the things that the Most High has created for good and turned it into evil, and those things that he's turned into evil is what's destroying you. In fact, we can read that here, and we'll get it in KJV, Sirach 39, Ecclesiasticus, all right, 39, let's scroll down, all right. It says, for the good are good things created from the beginning, so evil things for sinners. It says what? The principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, flour, okay, of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing. You see, that's why the Most High warned us, even told us that we'll be eating our foods defiled, okay, in the place that he shall scatter us. And it's also written in our laws, right? Don't wear mixed fabric. When you consider how, you don't have anything, you're actually lost without, being sovereign. You're actually lost without having the name of Yahweh Shem Al Shai, because this devil, Esau, Edom, self-proclaimed white man, he has smooth words to just win you over, man. Are you not flooded with various media, news, all these things to what? To influence you to buy these materials, clothes, food. It makes it so enticing, the color of a hamburger and, sausage or steak. All these things the Most High gave him power to do. Okay, I just wanted to mention that because it says in Sirach 39 and 27, all these things are for good to the godly, so to the sinners they are turned into evil. So all these things that we just read, okay, where we're talking about the iron, salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, the Most High created that for good. Okay, but when we had the Lord over us, man, we didn't have to worry about various diseases, but rather now that we are in captivity and we're not sovereign, we don't grow our own. You may have farmers here and there, but where do you go buy the seed from? And the seed is polluted, GMOs. So it's what you're putting into your body. You have to allow him entrance. Just like the vampire movies, right? There's vampire Dracula movies. Before he can come into your house, you have to invite him in. He can't just come in to your house, right? You have to give him permission. Fright Night. I want to say Fright Night 2. Okay? There was a great scene where this handsome vampire, okay, wanted to drain this boy of his blood. The boy won his mom in time, and a vampire came to his house and knocked on the door, and the boy told his mom, don't let him in. Do not invite him in. Even though the door was wide open, he couldn't come in until you invite him in. I'm just using that as an analogy for, so-called white man. The only way he can destroy you is when you invite him in. How do we invite him in? We just read it. To various foods, pestilence, disease, okay, water, air. When we read these articles, that's how you see the mortality rates dropping. Okay, it said the new study builds on previous findings regarding life expectancy in the U.S. between 2009 and 2021. Avoidably, mortality increased in all U.S. states, primarily due to increases in preventable deaths, while it decreased in comparable high-income countries, said a March 2025 study. Then an April 2025 study found that while wealthier people tend to live longer than poorer people, and who are the poor people? Okay, are we not considered the poor? Okay, the misused? Okay, because we don't have anything. Right? We get the scraps. We lived in impoverished neighborhoods. We just talked about that. Redlining, gerrymandering, keeping you in the ghettos, keeping so-called Indians in reservations. So how are you expected to thrive or to even live when you are living below the poverty line in reservations? And these things, they don't really show on the media, but they talk about it in various, stories. It says what? Then an April 2025 study found that while wealthier people, okay, tend to live longer than poor people in the U.S., even richer Americans have a shorter average life expectancy than those in the top wealthy quartile in comparable European countries. You see? So this is by design at the end of the day, man. So that's why we have to preach Yahweh Shem Al Shai. That's why we need deliverance from our enemy. Okay, Esau, Edom, because only the Most High is going to give us rest, man. As it says in Amos 3, it says, this is not our rest. All right, not your rest. Bear with me. And I'm going to end off on this. I got to go pick up my son. Salakia, it says, arise ye, and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you even with the sword destruction. And that's what we're reading about. It's destroying you so-called blacks, Latino, Native Indians. Your life expectancy, your mortality rates are dropping. So this is that time to what? Understand that there is a better way. This is not our rest. We have to get out of here, man. We have to call upon the name of Yahweh Shem Shai. All right? So with that being said, I want to give all thanks, all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wahara Kakadash, double honors to the elder apostle, great millstone, rule well, teach well, peace and salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom, Israel. By Yahshua Dawadah, House of David.